tonic sulfur is great. Tonic sulfur is beautiful. Tonic sulfur is effective. Tonic sulfur is how we should be rolling. They see me roll. Okay. Welcome to the channel strip, where we channel our energy into learning new things and strip away negative misconceptions. Alright, so I'm in a great mood. We got a cool setup. You can probably see my lights at the back. I'm trying a few things out. So shout out to Isaac the creator, my fantastic editor. Okay, so listen, let's get straight into this video, innit? Sorry, I just watched Top Boy, so forgive the extra energy. Okay, so here's the situation, right? The situation is I want to talk about hymns. Hymns are beautiful, powerful, emotive pieces of music that are quite challenging to get the grasp of. Now, I'm about 10, 12 years into my music journey. I started at the age of 14, which is, fairly old in the music world. And I realized that there's a lot about hymnals that I don't fully appreciate and I don't fully get. So let's talk about it a little bit. So there are strategies I'm going to present to you in this video, right? 4 of them. And I want you to keep that in mind as I go through this video, and I'm just going to lay it out because I've been told that at the start of the video, you should let your people know what you're going to be talking about. So what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about 4 things you're going to need to know about how to play your hymns and how to raise the level of your musicianship. 1, chords. If you can play your chords, you can play your hymns. 2, the melody of the song itself. 3, the positioning and the fingering. If you can finger well, you can play a hymn beautifully. 4, your harmonization, which we're not going to really go into this video. But knowing those 4 things and building on those 4 levels will allow you to play your hymns in a beautiful way. As a musician who is taught by ear, what I know to be true is that you can be given a hymn, given the tonic sulfur, which is how I encourage you to learn hymns, because you can tonic sulfur basically has a movable root, so you can take the tonic sulfur and move it to the next key and makes life easy. Now, as a musician who's been taught by ear and given essentially the tonic sulfur to play, as when I started off, I realized that I wasn't playing them well because, there's a lot of tricky things like how to find the notes myself, how to harmonize well. There's a lot of things happening with hymns, particularly with the whole key thing. Really, as a 14-year-old when I was learning back then, I really wanted to sight read my hymns, but I didn't know how to sight read. So, I spent months, writing out notes, looking at the bass and the roots and everything, and trying to work backwards, because ultimately I realized I want to play these hymns better, but I can't for whatever reason. So it was hard to come to terms with that, and ultimately, eventually, I gave up, because what would happen is I would have spent months, I would have spent hours over the week trying to pick up this hymn. I would learn it as best as I could off, like going on Google. I then find the notes on the stave, writing it down, going, okay, so they're playing a C and an E here, and then on the left hand they're playing the G and the B flat, and then I'd play it, and I'd be ready to go. But then I get to church, and these G's would sing this song in a different key, and it was like, nah, this ain't working. So I went back to the tonic sulfur way of doing things. Now, no shade to tonic sulfur. Tonic sulfur is great. Tonic sulfur is beautiful. Tonic sulfur is effective. Tonic sulfur is how we should be rolling. They see me roll. Okay. Tonic sulfur is how you should be rolling, because it gives you, again, that movable route where you can go from one key to another key to another key. And if your singer goes to G sharp, you can jump and continue playing the hymn. So knowing your tonic sulfur for your hymns is the key to success on hymns. However, one thing I realize is hard to do, especially for new musicians, given that I have students now myself, is actually identifying the hymn. So if I gave a hymn to my students and I said, on Sunday I want you to be playing the hymn for, what's a hymn? Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. Ultimately, I find that some of them can't identify the notes. A lot of the times it's because they couldn't find the key. A lot of the times it's because they simply can't, they don't have the internal ability to identify the melody, right? And just to revise the terms, melody is individual notes played. Harmony is more than one note played together and they sound nice. So what I find is that my students can't identify melody, so or and it's intrinsically linked to their inability to identify the key to actually start this off on. For new people starting off, I highly recommend start yourself up on the key of C. Go on to the key of C. You're gonna put this here because I need to be able to. Okay, so yeah, so go to the key of C. Key yourself in. Amazing grace. So go to the key of C, key yourself in, and then from there you're in a better position to identify the notes. Now the key is C because we're used to it, not because like I'm gonna assume that the musician who's learning by ear is learning first and foremost the key of C. Is how we're mostly taught. But ultimately, a better way to do this would be to go to the key that you sing best in. A lot of musicians don't know that because they don't sing. Neither do I, but the basics are important. If I was to sing, I would go to G sharp. Mm-hmm. 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 Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. So I would do that, and I would find my notes of G sharp. But honestly, I find my notes of C because it's the first key that I was taught, and that's the one I know best of all. So find yourself in C, key yourself in, and start to sing the song. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people would say, and I have asked this question to a very well-established saxophonist recently, and I said to him, and this is true, I'm not saying about my students, not about myself. I said to him, I find it hard when I'm in church playing live and direct to identify the melody of the song. If I want to play the interlude, I have to have practiced it the day before. What's the story there? Maji said, I just know it. I just hear it in my head. And I was like, it's not a sufficient answer for me because I don't believe that learning music is this thing that we're gifted. Of course, some people are gifted, but I believe that we can all learn this thing if we want to learn it. So having answers like, yeah, I just pick it up because it's internal doesn't work for me. For me, there has to always be a logic. Everybody should be able to pick this up. So, let me take this off. Here's what I've come to understand. Identifying the melody for a hymn is very simply done if you can simply identify how it's moving. Ultimately, find yourself in the key, such as C, then tone yourself to be in the tonal center, which is the tonic, which is the one, which is the do, if we're doing tonic so far, or the one if we're doing chordal system. So, do. Now, once you're in do and you can identify the root note, the tonic, what I'm hearing in my mind now is, I haven't thought about the question further, I can identify movements in intervals further and further and further away from the tonal center, the tonic, which is what I try to teach my students, right? I'm like, guys, you guys can do this if you just talk hard about the tonic so far. Sorry now. Okay, yeah. So I'm just looking at my hymn. So yeah, turn to the key of C, turn to the tonic and identify the one. Okay, and think about it. Is this song moving further and further away from my tonic, and by how much? And essentially, what I'm talking about in fancy terms here is skips and leaps. A movement in skip is basically a movement from any note. We're going to take our tonic, and it is a major second interval, meaning there's one note in between that one. Meaning between the C and the D, yeah, there's one note, the C sharp. And then a leap is essentially anything greater than that, anything greater than a second interval movement. So it could be a fourth, it could be a seventh, it could be a fifth, it could be an octave, a perfect fourth, perfect octave. It doesn't really matter, but ultimately, the mind doesn't know. Sorry, the hands can't play what the mind doesn't know. You cannot play the tonic if you don't know what is happening. So internally, what I want you to be able to do is be able to go, this is my tonic, it's moving in a skip, 2 steps, or it's moving in a third, like this, C to the E, which we all know if we play our chords, or it's moving greater than that, it's moving in a perfect fifth, right, which is 7 half steps. 1 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Yeah, basic music theory really opens the doors to understanding. Understanding opens our capacity to move things along quicker. So what I want you to be able to do is to be able to think about that and go, okay, it's moving in a skip greater than two half steps. I'm repeating myself here, and it's moving in a leap greater than that. So I want you to study your intervals because what you know in your mind you can hear, and what you can hear you can certainly play. So that is the music theory that allows you to find the tonic solfa. Now, I kind of said the second thing I was going to say, but to step it back again, hope I'm not confusing anybody. When you have a hymn, if you can play the chords you can play in church on Sunday, because let's change this now. Tell out my soul, sol la mi so re mi, so do re mi la fa re mi la. I'm gonna stop there. All I did there was chords. It is really important for new musicians and younger musicians to understand that there's no pressure. At the end of the day, we're here to serve God, right, on a Sunday morning. So if you don't know the tonic stuff out, please know the chords. And you should know the chords. You should be able to chord along to anything. So if you are attacking a hymn and going, I want to up my hymnal game, step one is be able to play the chords for most things, okay? Step two is be able to identify the melody, and that's easily done. Skips and leaps. So tell out my soul. I actually don't know the lyrics to this, but so do. I ultimately hear the saw going back to the do. I hear it. So la mi sorry me. You gotta be able to hear. And I know I use the tonic as the center point, but every note you play is the center point for the next note you're going to. So do, tell out my soul, so la mi so re mi, so la. That sounds like it's going away from the so la. So your question is, how many movements for away do I think? So la sounds like it's greater than a half step, you know. So how many steps is it going? Not too many. So la, it's actually a half step. Mi so re mi. So it's just something to help you along. That was a half step, by the way. So that was a second. So, why did I say it sounded like further away than a half step? That's simple. So la, that's pitch then. So that, we're complicating it a little bit, but we're also hearing the pitch in there. We're hearing that it's moving higher in a higher octave. So that's why it's not. You get me? So I'm not complicating it, but I'm just actually touching on something else there. So that was actually octaves you heard. So what I thought was a greater than a, I said, oh, that's definitely not a half step, didn't I? So but actually, it's a half step movement. It's a second interval. But what I was identifying when I said it's greater than a half step is that it's not going this way, right? That it's going this way. So I'm identifying pitch, and a lot of this thing is internal to us, right? And a lot of these things are not internal to us. But music theory allows our minds to be able to pick up the things that our eyes and our ears can ultimately then be able to identify. So that's two things: be able to chord, be able to identify the notes. Then when you identify the notes, you're like, okay, I know the notes now. How do I play the hymn? Something that recently just came to me. Like one day I was in the chapel in the hospital and it came to me. My God, I said to myself, bro, it is in the fingering. It's in fingering. It's in the fingering, right? And what I mean by that is that's chord one, isn't it? Yes, it is. And it's in the inversions. So if I go C E G and then E G C and then G C E, right? Let's put the mic down. What we will find ourselves doing is root, second inversion, sorry, root, second inversion, and then third inversion. So that goes. So what I realized was this thing is using inversions, and the only way you will know that is if you practice your chords. So if you practice your chords, one to the four to the five to the three to the six to the two to the five to the one, you will know your chords. And if you practice them in inversions, you'll know your inversions. And if you look at it for long enough, like I did, this took me years and years and years. I guess teaching does amazing things to you because when you're trying to teach, you're trying to go, why do I know what I know? And it makes you think, oh, damn, it's because of this, because of that, because of that. So, in the space of trying to teach as him to my students, I realized that, wow, there's a way to do this so that your fingers don't go cluttering over each other. So, one of the things I would like to imagine is imagine that there's a ball underneath your hand and imagine that you do not want to let go of that ball. That is the principle for how I teach my playing your scales like do, re, mi, fa, dear. I always tell them, make sure your fingers are not flying out this way or flying out that way. Make sure they're tight. Make sure it doesn't feel like a ball is about to fall out. Your ball is about to fall out of your hand. In the same way, if you know your inversions, so do was using inversion 3 if I was playing a chord 1. I feel like you guys can see my hands like this. Oh god. Anyway, so if I was in the third inversion, this is the shape that my hand would be in, and it allows you to go that way. So if we study this hymn, we'll realize the chord, the movement of the hands go inversion 3, inversion 1, inversion 3, inversion 1, inversion 3, inversion 1, and so on and so forth. The shape of your hand goes. I hope I'm not complicating this thing, but essentially I'm trying to give something to everybody. Like I said, some people can read music, a lot of track musicians cannot, and that is fine. No shame in the game. The thing is, we're trying to elevate how we play. We're also trying to get out of this box where we go, yeah, I just get it because I get it. So it's trying to give people strategies at every level, and that's just something I realize is the shape of my hand when I'm playing my inversions actually is the shape of the hymns, the melody when I've identified the melody, and the only way the only way to be able to do that effectively and clearly is to realize that ultimately the fingering of my 135 really helps me identify how to go so that I'm not tripping over my hands. And doing that allows us to get to level 4, which is harmonization. Doing harmonization requires you to think about what notes you're playing, how you're supporting those notes, because that's the next level, right? You've identified this saw, do, but well, I mean, you could play chords to that, or you could play individual notes to that, or you could harmonize to that. And having a clean way of playing your notes in terms of what finger you use allows you to be able to effectively and neatly harmonize and support your main melody. And doing that will elevate your musicianship. So how do I get my fingers to do the things I wanted to do? Well, yes, cycle through your chords and know your finger position for all your major sevenths and all your major thirds and your minus 2. They're the same finger, really. 1 3 5 7. Yeah, 1 3 5 7 or 1 3 5. Yeah. So knowing that helps you. But also something I'd like you to encourage you to do is do your hand exercises, right? Because hand helps finger dexterity, muscle strength, and muscle memory. So the first hand is wrong. Ah, sugar. Okay, listen, I'm getting it all wrong. Doing that and doing it well and doing it frequently and doing it all the time allows you to be able to have finger dexterity, have movement, have neatness, and it allows you to be able to do the things you want to do when you want to harmonize and play chords to your notes, which we're not going to get into in this video because it's actually out of the span of the video. But what I wanted to show with this video is when you identify the notes, you can then begin to support it with chords. But remember that chords was the first thing I suggested you do when you're trying to learn a hymn, chord along, because when you get to church on Sunday, if the singer or the musician or the pastor or whoever's leading the hymn decides to go to B flat, and you learned this thing pretty good in C sharp, then you can play the chords. It's okay. Jesus loves you still. So know the chords, and then if you know your melody and you can use your skips and your leaps and you can understand pitch and what is it going further up this way or that way, you can identify the melody, and that helps you to then play along to your thing. And then if you know your fingering, that helps you even more to be able to move neatly and quickly and nicely. My gym instructor, whenever I'm lifting weights, catch her to go nicely. So fingering helps you to play nicely, and then playing nicely helps you to harmonize, baby. Harmonizing is key. And when you get to a point where you have blessed to have access to an organ, and you got your foot pedals, then you elevate your musicianship. You elevate how you play hymns. Hymns are beautiful. Hymns are music of ancient days. Hymns are wonderful. So this is the channel strip where we channel our energy into learning new things and strip away negative misconceptions. The big misconception is that I can only play hymns when I only know how to read. That's a misconception. I can only play hymns well if I know how to read music. Another misconception is I can't play the hymn because I didn't learn it in the key. Use tonic solfa. Another misconception is I can't chord. Well, first of all, just chord. Yeah. And a big misconception is that no matter what level I can play at, I can't serve God. I gotta be excellent and harmonizing with sevenths and minor sevenths and diminished chords. To serve God, listen, serve God with your major C. Yeah. Serve God with your major C. It is okay. You will go to heaven too. I need everybody to hear that. It is really important that we understand that no matter what level we're at, we're still honoring God with our ability to play at every stage. I love every musician watching this, and the fact that you're trying to up your game, that's beautiful to me. You are a stripper because you're stripping away negative misconceptions and you're channeling your energy into learning hymns. Thank you very much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you in the very next video. The channel strip.